What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the weekly web show that serves up the juiciest discussions in the world of Web3 and gaming culture. I'm your host and re-NFT ambassador, Jim Kieran, and today we've got an excellent panel lined up for you guys. So stick around, grab a controller, crack open a Mountain Dew, and prepare to get your game on. Let's go.
Everything.
What's up, sauce enthusiasts? Welcome back to the Block Sauce. We have a new panelist as well as a returning panelist that I want to go ahead and give special introductions to real quick. We have Mikkel, who is now a permanent recurring member of the Block Sauce. How are you doing, Mikkel? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing so good, and I'm so stoked to be a regular returning panelist now. I felt very at home. Last time I came on, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, please let them ask me again. So when y'all asked, I was like, yes, dude. So yeah, no, it's perfect. I'm really excited to be here. I hope you're well too.
And I will say that last show you were on was absolutely phenomenal. I had a blast. I think it was probably one of our best episodes. So of course we're going to ask you to come back. I mean, we had to. And a new panelist who has never been on the show before. We have Erica with us, also known as Babes Cryptoland. How are you doing today, Erica? What you working on?
Hey everybody, what's up? I am doing really, really good. Thanks for asking. I'm just grinding away, transitioning from 2023 to 2024, getting all my spreadsheets in order, starting some new rows. I like to be super organized. So just transitioning and setting up my game plan for 2024 still.
I'm right there with you. You know, I'm rebuilding the office. That's why we got the green screen in the background instead of my usual office background. I mean, 2024, starting the year off, bunch of changes. It sounds like everybody's kind of doing the same. I'm loving to see everybody. They're like, I want to step up my game. I want to take things to the next level. And that's kind of what we're trying to hopefully do with Web3 as a whole, take things to the next level, right? Anyway, and if you're not familiar with this show and you're living under a rock, you may have forgotten Graslow, who is working on Oldor, so they're building their own game. How are you doing today, Graslow?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad to be here, and Happy New Year to everybody. Excited for this panel. It's a great looking group.
I'm glad to have everybody here. So we got some good news for the most part in Web3 right now. I haven't seen too many negatives, but we'll go ahead and start a little bit outside of the Web3 realm. This is just gaming in general. Steam this year had over 14,000 games that have released on their platform. How many can you name right now?
10 new ones.
Exactly. The reason I want to bring this up is in Web3, we see launching on Steam or Epic as like some big like hurdle that just got overcome. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the hype for launching on these platforms is necessarily justified just yet. It's coming. Our time is coming. But right now, I think people should probably focus on the product rather than where you're launching it.
Yeah.
I don't think that the big platforms are key to user onboarding and acquisition. I mean, this kind of shows that number, because I'll tell you right now, when it comes to Steam, I can probably name 5 games that come to mind in the past year. I did not know there was over 14,000 games launched. That's crazy.
That's shocking.
Yeah, I'll say that like over the past few years, game development, like the barriers to entry has steadily dropped. And we're now to the point to where game development is a lot like writing. Anybody can write a novel. Anybody on the panel can write a novel, spend a month or a year or however long you want to spend on it, and then go publish it on Amazon. Is it going to sell? If you don't have a plan, if you don't have an agent, if you don't have like the connections, you're probably not going to do well. Many people do that every year, but it doesn't mean that writing is over and that, there aren't successful books and authors. So I think that it's just important to look at like, yes, there's tons of like indie game devs. There's tons of like individuals that are creating games. I know many that do that, and they don't necessarily have a plan. Sometimes it's a passion project. They just want to do it. So they've always wanted to make their game, a lot of times they don't have any kind of marketing budget, don't have those connections. And if you don't have that, if you don't have like the experience running a business or have an executive that does, you're not going to be successful. And a lot of people just kind of rely on Steam for that discoverability. And I think more and more people are waking up to the fact that, while it works for the select few, it's a lot like the app stores these days. Many apps are submitted to the Apple App Store and Google App Store that don't, ever get traction. So it's really a gamble if you just rely on them for discoverability.
And that does kind of tie into the next topic. I'll bring it up in a second, but we for those that aren't aware, Artiverse announced that they're shutting down, and they are on those app stores. They had that platform available to millions of gamers because the mobile market is huge, and even they could not make it with that availability to players. So I think that this is going to cause a shift and hopefully make people realize that announcing your Epic or Steam launch isn't the win we think it is just yet. Let me know once you start seeing a player graph that's either up or, fairly plateaued, right? That's what I want to see. I want to see users. I want to see.
Do you think in Web 2 people are like, oh my God, I got my game listed on Steam, it's such a big deal? It's not. Like, that would be, so I sold on Amazon for years, right? Like, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I got my product on Amazon. Like, this is amazing. It's all it is a marketplace. It's just a marketplace for games, the same way Amazon's a marketplace for products. And it does cost, like, as a seller, it costs a lot of money to get a #1 ranked product of off-platform marketing and driving traffic to the platform, which is why Amazon is such a successful business model, which is why Steam is such a successful business model. So in and of itself, you're right, that means nothing. It just means people are navigating those hoops to get in, but to actually get traffic, it's like, would you rather be a tiny fish in a ginormous pond or a big fish in a littler pond and get that attention and traction and help build that core community of players? I wouldn't even be paying attention to Epic. If I'm a Web3, I'd rather be on a platform where I could drive people to, and I'm pretty much the only cool game there and everybody wants to come play my game rather than having all the distractions around me. That's just my personal take.
Yeah, yeah, it's about trying to create that hype, right? Everybody's trying to create hype in Web3. I think when the first game was listed on Epic, like, it was really exciting, right? But then I think once we realized that, okay, like, it's kind of the norm now, it's not so much hype, but, projects are still excited about it. And it's like, I'm not trying to, like, piss in anybody's Cheerios and be like, well, everybody else is on it too. I'm not going to be that guy. But at the same time, I think a lot of us who have been around know that, okay, it's not as big of a deal, but somebody who's just coming in might see that as like, oh, wow, like that's amazing. And so it just kind of depends on, where people have been at in the space. Have you been around for a long time? Do you really know what's going on or not?
Yeah. And there's a thing with the Web 2 gamers. Obviously, we like to think that a lot of gamers are against NFTs and blockchain. That's why we see the bad reviews on Steam. My personal experience is that is just a very loud and very vocal minority. Right before this show, I was in Discord talking to one of my World of Warcraft guildmates. And I was telling him, hey, I got a show in 30 minutes. I'll be back in a little bit. And he's like, oh, what's the show about? So I told him Web3 gaming, blockchain, and stuff like that. And he's like, I don't know what any of that means. So I sat down and I explained it to him. And I told him, like, imagine you could take your World of Warcraft mount, you own it, you bought it, and you have it. And GTA is like, hey, we can see that you own that mount publicly. If you come over to our game and you use that mount, we'll give you a car skin, right? So basic interoperability. I'm not getting my dragon per se, but I am getting like a dragon themed car skin. I was like, there's interoperability for you. I was like, all that gear that we get that we can't buy, sell, or trade. I was like, now we can buy, sell, and trade it. Like if you show up for raid one night and you don't have enough gear to actually do the raid, I could rent it to you. I could give it to you. I could let you borrow it. And then once you're done, you can give it back, right? That's what we're enabling here. And after telling him all this, he's like, that actually sounds really cool. I was like, yeah, so that's what this is. Like, if you see people yelling about blockchain and NFTs, like 5-10 years ago, yeah, all right, power usage was insane. There was a lot of, we still got scams, but there's a lot more scams than there are today. It's like the way I explained it to him, I was like, imagine we started blockchain with the Model T car. It didn't have 30 miles to the gallon. I was like, but over the years and after iteration, further development, new research comes out, boom, we can reduce the power usage. We can help combat some of these scams through various tools that we have to help improve security. And he's like, that makes sense. I was like, so we're not here yet, but we're getting there. And that's why people like us are in the space saying, hey, no, this doesn't fly, or hey, yeah, this is fantastic, because we need more level-headed people to not have our heads in the cloud, but also not bury our heads in the dirt either. We need people that are going to be here to push the space forward and apply constructive criticism. Just saying this is ass or your game's bad or something like that, that doesn't benefit. Tell them why their game's bad. Tell them what you would like to see improve, and maybe they can actually make it happen. The games that aren't doing that and listening and improving, that's a different story, but you get where I'm coming from. So we're making progress. Gamers aren't necessarily against this. It's a very vocal minority in my experience, and I think that having them on those platforms is good, but I don't think it's the hype we want just yet, because a lot of them aren't ready to be on those platforms, and that's why they're getting tore apart in those reviews. Focus on the product, finish it up, listen to your community, and focus on what they think are the biggest issues. And then once you feel comfortable and you have a decent retention rate in your closed testing, then drop it for the open testing. But a lot of these games can't even retain players in closed testing, and then they go public and wonder why they're getting ripped apart in the reviews. That's why. Mm-hmm. If your closed testers don't even stick with the game, why do you think other people will? So
it's YOLO.
I get it. So here's the thing, though. What I would be hyped about is if somebody makes the front page of Steam. If you can get on the front page, that is huge marketing, because I'll tell you right now, every time I open Steam, that's the first place I go. What's on sale? What's new? What's everybody playing? That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'm not searching for your game's name. I'm not digging, unless you're like some big name that I have to go buy, like Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously, I'll search for that. But I'm not digging through these lists or using discoverability tools on Steam. I don't think most people are, unless you're like a super indie fanatic, right? And let's be honest, the indie market is still very niche compared to mainstream games like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex, stuff like that. So I feel pretty confident in saying most people are not going to find your game just because you launch on that platform.
And there's also the like downsides of their policies about NFTs. So, you know, you really have to look at it like Mikkel was saying, you know, the pond issue, you know, like, do you want to invest in sending your players over to a platform that's not, you know, letting you build the game that you want to build? Or do you want to focus on, you know, platforms that are? And you know, if Steam's going to, you know, do the discoverability and hand you 10,000 players, then sure, that makes sense. But if you're having to push all your players to Steam, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm of the belief I don't mind using Steam, and I don't mind playing Web3 games on Steam, but with the restrictions, my personal experience is most of the time I end up either having to direct download the game or use Elixir to use my NFTs anyway. And you're not going to convince most Web2 gamers to go download a Web3 game launcher. It's not going to happen. I mean, you already see how most gamers will react to the Epic Games Store or Origin from EA or Uplay from Ubisoft. They don't want 10 bajillion launchers. They want one place they can open up their library and launch the game. So there's definitely benefits to launching on Steam. I just don't think it's the huge W we all believed it to be.
I mean, I don't even know that there is benefits unless you have that huge marketing budget and can drive your own traffic, because like you said, you are bringing your Web3 audience right back to Web2. There's a lot of distractions there unless the game is phenomenal. So it's like, the way I see it is like, we either need that one really big, just blockbuster game that brings all the attention to Web3 game, and so people naturally come start exploring what we have in Web3. And the other thing is influencers, right? Like literally just the influencers, maybe some Web2 influencers that are bringing people over to try. Those are really the only effective ways to get people to open their eyes to this, because just putting a game on Steam on the 100th page of results, that's not going to do anything in and of itself. And then also, making that evangelical argument one by one to every single gamer, it's next to impossible, right? Like, and you are 1,000% right when you say, that it's the silent minority that's out of it, because most people have no idea that we're even building this right now. There's such a large portion of the population that has no idea that blockchain gaming even exists. Just the maxis on the other side are like the maxis on this side, and the few of us are doing battle, but we're fighting really for that larger subset of gamers that just has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and 100%. Since you mentioned, go for it.
I did want to just throw in to piggyback off of that, to say that there is this unique opportunity. While I agree with you, Jen Kieran, that gamers don't want another launcher, there's this unique opportunity today because of Steam's policies and because of this new NFT and Web3 technology we're building, that Web3 launchers can rise up and say, you know, like, hey, if you believe in this tech, or if you're interested in these games, you can, you know, try this, you know, a lot of these games in one place. And I think that that's a selling point that will work for a while. And so it gives them a market advantage, and it lets them, you know, build that differentiator to where, you know, then Steam has to decide, do they adapt, or do they just kind of like decide that they're forever hooked with, you know, Web 2 and leaving Web 3 and, you know, to do its own thing.
And Mikkel mentioned influencers, so I kind of want to spin the conversation off a little bit, because this is obviously opinion at this point, because everybody's going to have their own opinion, and I can't sit here and say it as fact, but a lot of the Web3 gaming influencers, I feel like they're doing it wrong because they're focusing only on the Web3 audience. When you want to convert users, you're not going to be able to be a Web3 native influencer and convince Web2 people to jump over. They're not going to trust you. There's no pre-established relationship, and they already have skepticisms about Web3. My best conversion has actually been from Web 2, because I am not a Web 3 native. I started in Web 2. I built most of my community and audience in Web 2, and I moved over to Web 3 about 2 years ago. And I've had a few people that are like, oh no, I want nothing to do you right now. But most people are actually open into listening to me because I have that pre-established relationship. They know I'm not going to promote a scam if I can avoid it. They know that I'm not going to steer them wrong intentionally, because I do let people know, hey, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm human. I make mistakes too. But it's actually been really, really beneficial for onboarding. I've got somebody who was completely anti-crypto and anti-NFT to try multiple Web3 games, and he was actually impressed with how it was set up. He wasn't necessarily impressed with the game itself, obviously, we're still early, but he was actually impressed with how the blockchain and the NFTs and stuff worked. I helped him set up his own wallet. I sent him an NFT to get him into a game. He learned how to stake on his own. It was fantastic. And that's the problem. And I think that's why we're starting to see people like Bryson. They're like going back to CSGO and they're building their audience there, but they're still lightly touching on Web3 and talking about it, because that is how you're going to bring people over. And even me, I've been doing the same thing with my World of Warcraft guild. I don't know if you guys remember Metapixel, but it was a big Web3 MMO that had some testing earlier this year. I loved it. It was the only Web3 MMO to get me to put down World of Warcraft for more than like a day, right? And I went to my WoW guild and I showed them the trailer, and they were like, oh my God, this is so cool. We should set up a raid night and like get people in here. And it's because they already knew me. They knew that I'm not going to, you know, throw something at them. So I really think that a lot of people in Web3 who are focusing only on Web3 gaming, you're only going to focus on the Web3 audience. And most of those people probably either are already aware of the game or already aware of what they need to do to get into the game. So you're kind of already preaching to the choir at that point. But
well, you have to think about,
right?
I think you have to think about like what your average Web3 influencer is like, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get sponsorships. How are they getting those sponsorships right now? Well, by having a lot of traction and showing they can get a lot of people to show up to a Twitter space. They know how to do that very well within Web3. It's well established. Run giveaways, do things like give people value. I can blow my account up and make it look, I can give like the illusion that I will provide all this value to your game, but really it's just the same recycled people that we're all recycling here. So for a Web3 influencer to then say, hey, let me go to this hard audience and I'm going to go start tweeting at Web2 gamers, and they're not going to respond. I don't know what buttons to push with them. So it's going to hurt my engagement. I'm going to make less. It becomes a tougher sale for me to make for these other, you know, Web2 gamers. Why would I do that to myself, right? We don't have tracking tools for, and don't get mad at me influencers, but tracking tools for like how well everybody's actually converting and like what the actual value they're bringing to games. And I'm excited. Are you going to talk about
there's a platform for that that's coming out. I forgot, but I saw it on the timeline.
Yeah, so it's coming. Yeah.
Rev.
So yeah, Rev GG, and we love them. And that's what we need. That's exactly who I was talking about. That's what we need so that we can actually measure the value that's being delivered to these games. And then the work's going to get harder. But right now, I think influencers, you know, at the top who started early have had a pretty easy time. I think it's going to get a lot more competitive, because when you can actually track and measure like the value, right? You can just say, hey, plug into the system. For every person that you bring to my game, we're going to give you $1, right? So my 15-year-old son is going to say, sweet, I'm going to go get people. And then, somebody else's son and all these other people are going to start participating because they can participate at a very low level. They don't have to be a top influencer to get these big contracts. And if they develop that hustle very well and they learn to convert their friends really well, they'll make a ton of money relatively, right? And it's going to get much harder at the top. So I hope that the big influencers are paying attention. They're always going to have the largest audiences, and there's always a use case for that in marketing, right? Like making that big splash, getting the initial attention on a game. You still need those big accounts to do that. But in terms of when people are looking for actual conversions and players, they won't be going to those big influencers anymore, I don't think.
Yeah. And I think that, as I don't consider myself an influencer, but content creator rather. I think influencer is just a dirty word. But, yeah, I mean, even I am hesitant now to do giveaways because in the end, it ruins your engagement. I feel like you can have a huge following, but if all of that following is just from giveaways and a false sense of inflation, when you do look on Rev and you see your numbers and your engagement rate, you're going to be really, really disappointed, as are the games that are hiring you. So, I mean, I know what my engagement rate is. I don't know how that compares to some of the other content creators, but it's something that I've really don't follow me unless you're actually really into games and, gaming news and everything that I put out. So I'm not saying don't follow me, but you know what I mean. In the long run, you want people who are genuinely interested, not just following you because you're giving away $50 or something like that. But yeah, and to the point of just catering to this Web3 bubble, I hate that. I want to be able to expand my reach. And so that's something that I am working on personally, but I've always been Web 2, Web 3, I play a little bit of both. I stream a little bit of both.
You're a gamer, that's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. Do I have that big following on Twitch that is, gaining my trust? A lot of them are from Web 3. And so, just to be honest and transparent, it's something that I'm even working on. And it's hard, but nothing good comes easy. So, I think it's just a matter of time.
So you did say that you hate the word influencer. I do too, but this is something that I always like to point out. We as content creators have to understand that we do have influence.
True.
Even though I
Very
only
true.
like to consider myself a content creator, I have seen people make purchase decisions based off of my own content. So that's unfortunate reality that people will take us for face value, but that is the reality, So just something for all the content creators to keep in mind. You do unfortunately have influence if you have any sort of audience, especially if they are making purchase decisions based off of your input. So that's why I just don't do financial advice. I just say, I minted this or I bought this. And if people buy because I bought it, well, that's on them. I never told them to go buy or purchase.
Well, do we just say content creator to make ourselves feel better? Because honestly, we're creating ads. It doesn't matter, right?
It depends on the content creator though, because I don't do ads. I've mixed mine up between education and entertainment. But yes,
anything we watch is an ad though, right? We're being marketed to in every sense.
I would say if it's a sponsored video, it's an ad. But if it's not sponsored and you're keeping it purely educational or entertainment value, it's just content.
But don't you think people will still make purchase decisions based on what you're showing them? It's why, in movies, the car companies that pay for promotion get their logos featured and all the other stuff. And if not, it's they try to hide that stuff as much as possible. Anything that you share with someone, we all influence each other in any area of life. I think we've gotten to this point where we're influencers are horrible. People who misuse it are horrible. But everyone has influence in life, and we all have the ability to use it for good and for evil. It just comes down to the kind of influencers or creators or whatever you are. I think at the end of the day,
there are a lot of creators that focus on games that you wouldn't buy, games that either they're playing it so you don't have to, or it's it's a terrible game and they're kind of ragging on it, or if it's a really weird genre and you're just watching it for entertainment purposes, and that was something I was going to kind of highlight with creators in general. It is hard to build an audience, and it's a different path for everybody. If you're, if you're just starting out, you don't want to like pick the smallest known game. And this is even in Web 2. Like you don't want to pick like some brand new game in an indie category and say, this is what I'm going to focus on, unless you already have like an audience, because
so
it can be a tactic.
it could be a tactic. If people are searching for that game
community.
Right.
Exactly. Because I will tell you right now, there are multiple creators who, like before Marvel Snap popped off, they jumped on Marvel Snap because the mobile audience is actually massive. For those that aren't aware, there's a streaming platform called Trovo. They were mobile only focused when they first launched, and they had a surprising amount of viewership. So it is possible, if that game already has a community but is lacking creators, it is a good opportunity for you to jump in there and start building within that community. But generally speaking, a brand new game with no community and no support whatsoever, I'm going to agree with Graslow.
And I'll say, like, making that exact point and taking it to Web3, like we're really heavy on creators and light on like games and community, like in real gamers that are watching. Like a lot of the people that are big on Web3 games are not necessarily on Twitch and Kick and watching the YouTube videos. They're just on Twitter looking for the headline to see if their bags are going up, and they're not like looking for gameplay videos. Now, as games progress and as games start to do real marketing, then it's going to be a lot easier for creators. But yeah, creators today in Web3 have a hard, they're in a hard spot because it's a small community and they're all trying to, but I don't think it's wrong to just focus on Web3. Just knowing that you have a long-term horizon, because when people are coming to Web3, they see Shrapnel, they see an ad, they see a trailer. They're going to look for people playing Shrapnel, and if you're playing Call of Duty or whatever, like they're not looking for that content. They're specifically looking for Shrapnel, and if you're specializing in that, you're the expert. You're educating them. You're going to capture those users much easier than you would if you just like start playing Call of Duty all of a sudden and want to try to bring some of those as crossover.
Well, this does actually also tie into the next topic, which is Artiverse announced that they are shutting down, and they have worked with various influencers in the space. We've even seen them work with Bryson, one of the largest names, I think, to date in the Web3 content creator space. And he has done multiple activations for them. He's done real, like out in the real world, getting people to play, Pong, I believe. And he's been advertising the heck out of their game, and they still didn't make it. So even getting the largest creator in the space to promote and advertise your game on a fairly consistent basis, I think it fell off eventually, but he was promoting it there for a while. He even I got a free NFT from one of his streams for it. And it just goes to show that even if you have big names, you may not necessarily find the success and conversion that you would hope for.
You're probably paying too much for those big names, and it hurts your bottom line, and you shorten your runway.
Well, we don't even. I'm not going to speak on Bryson's deals behind closed doors. We don't know if they were paid or if he was an ambassador or what's going on there. But I don't think Bryson's the type of person to promote something he doesn't actually believe in, based on my experience with him. So I think this was something he genuinely wanted to see succeed. So it could probably be unpaid, but let's be real. Everybody in content creation, especially once you're his size, it is a business. So time equals money. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think it was the product. If I'm going to be completely honest, I saw Bryson's advertisements. I got the NFT. I had no interest. It was a mobile table Pong essentially. And it's like, I don't even play those in Web 2. I don't know anybody that really plays them in Web 2 consistently. So why would I find it attractive in Web 3? Because I can earn? I don't think a lot of people in Web 3 understand the gamer mentality. We want fun. We want entertainment. I am throwing money at games and people are like, oh, you're burning money. No, I'm not. Because the more money I give to them, the more funding they have to keep building my favorite experiences. World of Warcraft has been running for 20 years, and they're one of 2 subscription-based MMOs, and everybody thought they would die because people have to pay monthly. And it's like, no, just because free-to-play is the new meta doesn't mean I want to give up the game that I've played the last 15 years, So I don't know. I think that if they had done a different type of mobile game, it may have been more widely received and they probably would have found better success. But what they put out as their first product just didn't really make me want to jump in,
Yeah, so it wasn't my genre, and I'm not especially bullish on mobile in Web3 anyway. But and I know that's a hot take, but I'll say that not knowing anything about their numbers or anything, I think that a lot of startups that raised during the bull market have this weird timing issue where they raised at a very great time, they have a really high valuation, and now that they're trying to extend those runways and raise for their Series A or whatever the next round is, the valuation has to come down significantly to get to where fair market value is today. And a lot of teams just can't do it. Like it is slash and burn, and you just have to close shop. So I think a lot of projects are in that boat.
That's kind of what scares me, because this isn't even a Web3 problem. Let's be honest, this is a games industry problem. I have been a victim of multiple game shutdowns in Web2. This is nothing new. It just sucks because we want to see Web3 games succeed. Back during the 2021, 2022 bull market, everybody's like, WAGMI, we're all going to make it. All these games are fantastic. And now we're starting to wake up, smell the roses, and realize, oh, wait, these are businesses. Not every business succeeds. There's a very high chance a majority of the games we see today, we won't see in the next couple years. And that for us as content creators is hard. What do we promote? What do we convince people is worth their time? Because I have found multiple games that I'm like, this is phenomenal, and then crickets. Like I made content. I'm gonna throw them under the bus here. Sorry guys. Hopefully ReNFT doesn't fire me for this, but Make It Out, a game that was built on Binance. I actually really enjoyed the game.
Cool.
It was great. I made content for it. They used my clips and stuff for their marketing, and then they just went silent. Once I helped them recover, after I made my stream, they recovered like 50, 60,000 in market cap, and then they cashed out, and I haven't heard anything since. And I'm like, that was my bad, guys. I thought it was a fun game. There was a good product here. I told you guys it was worth your time, and now they're gone.
Yeah, it sucks. It's really hard. I do turn down projects. I try to like turn them down and like tell them why, not just like when you apply for a job and you don't hear anything back, but I do try to give them feedback and tell them like why I'm, not going to promote them or whatever. But having a little bit of a platform, like I do try to protect my community as much as I possibly can. But it's one of those things, like if somebody's going to blame you because you put out a tweet or put out a video on a game that went under and they're going to blame you for it, like, really? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, they're probably the vindictive type anyway. So,
well, these are like, at the end of the day,
in that case, I'm in trouble because I have promoted Spellbreak that shut down. I have promoted Breach, which shut down. Nosgoth, which is shut down. I'm in trouble with Web2 gamers then. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah. No, I think like the problem with like getting upset about that is we're almost like pre-programmed with the mentality in Web3 that these are financial instruments, and it's something different from Web 2, and I don't want to promote anything that might be a rug. Like, just like Jinky said, at the end of the day, it's something like 95% of startups fail. It's very close to that number. So almost every business that you participate in ever, whether you're a customer or whatever, it is going to fail, right? And then the very, very few make it long-term. 5-10 years even is considered long-term for a lot of businesses. So at the end of the day, you're playing games, you're paying for the time that you get. This is entertainment. Like, consumers, I think, need to change their mentality about this a little bit and just understand what it is they're actually buying. It's not, I'm not buying a game with the promise that it's going to exist forever. Like, how long do you actually play a game? Like, a Web 2 game with no monetization, no, just like a playthrough game, right? Like 20, 30, 40, 50 hours, you're done, you put it aside, and you paid for the entertainment. And that's the right mindset. And I think that's the mindset that needs to apply to all of this. Like, break down your cost of gaming per hour and like try to hit that average rather than, like expect these guys to carry that forever.
Is exactly how I do it. Cost per hour. Because I'll tell you right now, and going and buying a Blu-ray movie and thinking about that, you get like an hour and a half to 2 hours of entertainment now, but you spend approximately $10 to $15 an hour because of the cost of the media. Whereas I can spend that same amount on a game and get like thousands of hours. Lethal Company right now on Steam, it's super indie game, $10 on Steam, right? I've already got over probably 20 hours in it, and I just bought it last Thursday.
Wasn't GTA about going pay per hour or pay per time you consume it, right? Like maybe that's just the more appropriate business model for, in terms of like on both sides. Like we are not like pricing this product right. There's a big disconnect between some game you might pay $100 for and play for 10 minutes and it sucks and you throw it out. Another game you might pay $100 for and you play for the next 20 years. You know, you love the game and you never log out of it. Well, that developer who put all this time and effort into creating this amazing experience that you've wanted to play for 20 years got the same amount as the developer who made total shit that you put down after 10 minutes. Like that's not right. So,
and that's something that kind of Graslow, you're working in game development, so I want your take on this. We're in 2024. We now have an era where AI is coming into play. The tools have never been more streamlined than they are today. Why are the costs of games going up when the ability to develop them and the necessary skill set to develop them is dropping?
Well, we're in this weird time where games are being treated like, big budget pictures, which is great. Like I love that as a gamer because we're seeing, real attention paid to the industry. People are investing a ton of money. They're having really large teams, and they're having, studios now. They're outsourcing less, so they're bringing in house. Like look at Baldur's Gate 3. They shared a lot about like how they did their motion capture, their facial capture. They brought in actors and. They do a lot of detail and polish. But I will say that, like, yes, you're absolutely right that the cost of development is coming down on the average, but we're all focused on the top games. And the pricing is usually based on that. Like most of the top games, come out at what, $59.99 or
no, they're going up to 70 now. That's what I'm saying. They're going up.
Some of the bigger games, but a lot of the smaller games, they're $10. Like you just mentioned, the top game on Steam today is $10. And there's a lot of games that are priced like that. Now, of course, they don't have the quality and the content that some of the AAA games do, but sometimes they do, and they just don't have the attention. They don't have the marketing budget behind it. So I think that there's kind of like this division between the AAA budgets, which is continuing to rise, and then you have the everything else.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I'm looking at it from the consumer standpoint, right? A lot of games are actually dropping in play hours. I can usually beat most games that come out today in probably 4 to 8 hours. I can tell you right now, I beat Resident Evil 2's remake, the first playthrough, in about 4 hours. That is ridiculous. Now, I got my time's worth because thankfully that game has 4 different playthroughs. So I got my time's worth eventually, but in general, most games don't have that replayable factor. At that point, it becomes like just go collect everything, explore the full map. There's no additional content or playthrough route. And it's just mind-blowing to me that we're seeing these experiences like they're just providing less and less, but the costs are going up, and that doesn't make any sense. That's why indies right now are thriving.
Per hour? Would you rather as a gamer pay per hour?
See, it's tough because
depends on the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, but if it was all games, right? Because if I'm paying for the ones that I'm really using and I'm feeling the development of only really good games, and then I'm not giving all these money to crappy developers, that was kind of your point about World of Warcraft, right? Like do I have a problem paying more to the games that I'm spending a ton on, but then hardly giving anything to the game developers that suck?
Well, here's the thing. The game developers that suck, they don't necessarily suck. They actually build great games. Like if you look at Lethal Company, it's by no means a AAA experience. The graphics are lower. It's a little buggy. It's kind of messy, but it is a lot of fun. Like that is the main factor with games is, can I get engrossed? Can I have fun? Can I play with my friends? And when it comes to indie developers, I think that's why we see the lower price points is because they are specifically indie. They don't have a publisher. They don't have to worry about shareholders and investors. They can set their own deadlines. And I think that's why the indie developers are really starting to overtake these AAA games in terms of popularity, at least, is just because they come up with unique ideas and experiences that these AAA developers don't want to take the risk on. Like BRs, for example. BRs, MOBAs, look at both of them. Where did they start? An independent developer creating a mod or a specialized map within an existing game that really popped off and allowed them to go make their own dedicated game and spin off into something fresh and unique and completely separate from the original product. And I think that's what we're going to see more of moving forward, especially now with the new Fortnite Unreal editor. We are seeing some crazy projects come to Fortnite now because of it. And I think that we will see a lot more developers start to test their idea within Fortnite. And then if it pops off, that's whenever they go ahead and spin off and create their own full game. And I think that's something we could probably even leverage more here in Web3. Like, test your ideas with a test bed first, so you don't have to go out and create your own engine and start developing all your own assets and all. Like, try something small.
If we're charging per hour in that scenario, though, those games would get organically funded by the communities without you having to do a big mint, doing this thing, and then maybe or maybe not the game makes it, maybe or maybe not everybody in the community actually likes that game. It's about getting the right product to the right person at the right time. So if we can pay per hour and not have to pay like 100 and something to mint, and then I realized I don't even like that game. I just minted it because my friend told me to, but really I don't even like it. It's a market, right? We're trying to match gamers with games they like that they'll continue to play, and they should be paying for those games over and over, not taking the risk on all these other games and spending,
well, that's where DLCs and stuff come into play. That's why all the little microtransactions, that's where you're essentially paying per hour, especially when you look at a game like Destiny that has like 3 or 4 expansions a year, right? Call of Duty, obviously, they got their battle passes, all the skin cosmetics, like that's becoming the trend. So we're not directly paying per hour, but there are whales out there that are basically funding our game time. Now, the issue with pay per hour is in shorter games, yes, it could work out and provide additional value to the consumer. However, when you look at a game like World of Warcraft again, I've been playing that for almost 20 years. If you had me paying per hour, I probably would have spent a lot more than the $15 a month that I am currently spending. So I think that is something that could be considered, but I think it would have to be on a very specific basis. Like shorter games, for sure. If you give me a short game that I can play clear through in 8 hours, I'll pay per hour for that, especially if there's optional content that can extend me out past that 8 hours, because then it's my choice as the consumer. Do I want to pay to continue this additional content, or do I just want to play the parts that I wanted to play, right?
Right. So, well, I think my bigger point is we can price things differently, right? Like, we're stuck in these models of how we've been paying for things. There's a lot of different ways to look at this problem, and maybe that's something Web3 should be paying attention to more than trying to develop on all of these other things. Let's think of cooler ways to monetize these games and to charge people that can become innovative and trend-setting, and that's why Web2 people come over. It doesn't have to just be the blockchain tech. Like, someone gets that really right.
If the new China regulation is going to affect the monetization model for pretty much every game ever that at least operates in China, is going to have to rethink how they do things. So China could force this to happen sooner rather than later, not just within Web3. It would literally be a game industry-wide change.
I think they actually backed out of that. I haven't.
They haven't officially backed out of it, but from what Graslow was telling me yesterday, they did fire the guy that made the policy.
Yes.
So they haven't officially confirmed they're walking it back, but they did fire the guy who came up with it, which I'll consider that a small W.
After $80 million in losses. Yeah, great.
Well, it wasn't the CCP that took the losses, so I don't care.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, just 10 cents. Yeah.
Well, they are really sensitive.
China now, you guys realize that, right?
They are sensitive to the economy over there because it is, slowing down. And so, taking a massive hit to the games industry is not good timing.
I wonder why it's slowing down. I couldn't possibly imagine that the regulation of letting consumers enjoy the shit that they buy would possibly affect the market. No, that couldn't be. Never.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Oh my God.
I wonder why they're just like ruiners of fun. Like, do they just get off on being like,
ruiners of fun?
No more.
No fun for you.
Oh, you
get out of my kitchen.
Oh, you want to spend all your money on a game? Sorry, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. Like
power, right? Power just creates the need to have more power.
I guess. Yeah. I guess so.
What do you think, Gaz?
You could tell that the guy that came up with the policy obviously was not a gamer. So
Yeah.
Or maybe he was and he had
100%.
an addiction problem and he thought that he could fix his addiction problem by impacting the entire country.
There you go.
I mean, sometimes people are just projecting, let's be honest.
That's
Good point.
totally fair.
Well, in our final topic of the day, and I love this one. I can't tell you guys how excited I am about this. I will explain in a minute. Square Enix is set to modify their entire organizational structure to support blockchain, Web3, and AI moving forward in 2024. Company president said that they will be aggressive in its application of AI and other cutting-edge technologies. The reason this excites me is because Symbiogenesis is their Web3 game. I think it's been available a little bit for a few months now. I have not personally played it. I've heard good things from people that have gotten involved, but it's not like a game as we would traditionally expect, especially from Square Enix. But it's more like a gamified experience. Like there are goals and objectives for you to do, but you're not actually immersed in the world. You're not controlling a character. This is all story and lore and community focused, right? And when it came out, I was very cautiously skeptic. I don't even know how to say this without sounding terrible, but I thought that Square Enix saw Web3 as a way to generate some quick cash, and that's what this game was for. Because, like I said, it's not a full game, so it felt like they put the bare minimum effort out there. Because Square Enix is amazing at storytelling. Like every game I've ever played of theirs, the story is phenomenal. So I knew that the story side of this would probably take off with the community, and it has. So that's good. But I was worried that this was a one-off thing. Seeing them restructure the org to further support blockchain, Web3, and AI, like this tells me they're doubling down. They believe in the technology. They've seen their game's success somewhere, somehow, and they want to proceed forward with using it. So I think this is a big W, having a major AAA publisher come into this space, test the waters, and then double down. That's my take.
Yeah. It'll probably be like one of the only big major studios that makes it, right? Because all the other ones pivot too slowly. No, I mean, I kind of feel like game developers should just literally just focus on creating great games and the storytelling and all that stuff and find infrastructure partners to do the rest of it. But it doesn't exist yet, right? So the people that are coming over early have to have teams dedicated to helping them integrate with the right tools and products, and maybe in some cases building their own tools or becoming their own launchers if they have aspirations to do so. Honestly, that's the only way I could see that really funding itself over time, right? Is if you have a financially generating Web3 product outside the game, because these games are just games. We keep saying that. It doesn't matter. Like at Sedona, we're building a Shopify plugin, whatever. You can take a Web2 game, plug it in, and you plug in all the tools. You don't have to have blockchain experience. At some point,
you can't earn in Web2.
Yeah, but they'll just plug in the same Web2 game, right? The same game that can plug into Web2 technology can plug into Web3 technology. It's a narrative and visuals. It's the
I want World of Warcraft in Web3. I almost had a Blizzard rep on this show, believe it or not.
That would be amazing.
And they found out it was Web3 and they said nope. That's exactly what happened. And I'll tell you, I can tell you why. World of Warcraft has their own token, and it fluctuates with supply and demand. It is not a Web3 token. It is all within their own enclosed economy.
Yeah.
If we were to implement Web3, instead of money in and only in, all of a sudden you have money in and out, and that would disrupt their entire model.
That destroys their moats and their models. Yeah.
They basically copied Web3 and made it a closed economy. Literally.
That's
because
why
those tokens can be purchased with in-game gold. So there's your in-game currency that you farm, or they could be purchased with fiat cash and then sold for in-game gold.
That's why Web3 is disruptive, because it wouldn't be disruptive if you didn't have the legacy, corporate giants rejecting or just outright ignoring this innovation. And I think it's just very easy to say, blockchain bad, NFT bad, we don't want anything to do with it. They're doing it for business decisions, but they can blame it on whatever they want. They can blame it on the environment. They can blame it on scams. They can blame it on anything. But they know that, if they put actual research into it, that it's a legitimate use case that could actually, benefit gamers. And I think Square Enix is smart to say, you know what, in 5 or 10 years, this could be massive. Why don't we pioneer this? Why don't we be the first one to do it, with significant capital? and let's be on the right side, you know, and not be, you know, at risk of like losing the company to something that came up and disrupted the entire industry.
Here's what a lot of Web 2 companies also don't realize is this actually alleviates their black markets too. Because, you know, they don't want you selling your World of Warcraft characters. Guess what? People do it. They don't want you selling your World of Warcraft gold. Guess what? People do it. They don't want you
They don't
selling
care
your
about
account.
black markets.
People do it. Exactly.
They just don't want you selling, period.
They actually do
They
care
don't
about
want you to
markets
own
because
it.
that is the only reason World of Warcraft has their token now, was to allow people to directly be able to have a route to buy gold. Because what was happening is people were buying gold on all these black market websites. They kept getting their account hacked.
And they weren't making the money.
Exactly. So Blizzard's like, oh, let's capitalize on this.
It's money. It's not they feel bad for people getting rugged. Come on, let's.
but now they have another chance to capitalize on this and fix a problem, because if they were Web3, guess what? You have a new revenue source called royalties. And all that stuff that was previously untradeable, unsellable, and generated zero revenue for your company, all of a sudden can generate revenue. So you're eliminating the black markets and opening up a new revenue route. I think that this is nothing but beneficial for Web 2 when done correctly. They just don't realize it yet. That's my take.
You got to believe that they all have this model that they're playing with, and they're like, all right, if we went to Web3 today, what does our monetization look like? You know, what is the financial outcome? And until that model to them, you know, shows that they're going to generate a lot more revenue, make more money, then they're going to continue to stick with, and they'll say whatever narrative makes sense at the time, but it's a financial decision.
Yes. Yeah.
100%. No, I agree with that.
That was a perfect take.
Did you have anything to add to that, Erica?
I was just thinking about it, and I can see them. I mean, they've been in the space for a while. They partnered with Elixir, maybe like, I think like a year ago. Maybe it was like last April, or maybe not quite a year. My timeline is a little bit, I don't keep track of things like that. It all blends together. But at any rate, they've been in the space for a while. And so they definitely see the potential, but I think that they are going to, I think that they have things in the background that maybe we haven't even thought of yet, a way to implement blockchain technology. And they could have something under their belt, and they're, you know, we're thinking like, oh, they're going to come out with a Final Fantasy Mint. They might not even be thinking about that. Like, it might be something completely different. You know what I mean? And so I think that they're just going to show us new innovative ways of how to incorporate blockchain into games. I don't know how, of course, but I mean, if I did, like, hey, but yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, exactly. And Ubisoft, they just released their like 2024 timeline and vision, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm curious to see what what they have, because they are in Web3 as well. And so I'm curious to see if they talk about blockchain, Web3, everything like that. So that's on my plate to read tonight.
Yeah, so there is one point of contention I have with these big publishers moving over here, though. If you'll notice how much marketing effort they put towards their Web3 entries versus their Web2, they basically don't even market their Web3 games. Why are you going to build in this space and then not promote it? Are you that scared? I mean, you already made it. People already know you made it. So the lashback's already there. It's on the forums. People are already angry, yelling and screaming into the void of the unknown.
They're just putting their foot in, testing the waters. Yeah. Yeah. They're afraid of player backlash, which is crazy. Because I mean, ultimately, the players are going to be there, you know, regardless. Like, they're going to be, in my opinion, they're going to be forced to adopt or not, you know, or they're just not going to play the games. And I mean, that's just silly. Like, eventually, if you're a Final Fantasy fan and they come out with a new Final Fantasy and it has NFTs and blockchain, are you really going to be like, screw the blockchain? I hate technology so much that that you don't play the new Final Fantasy game.
Well, the point is that ultimately we will have a better experience for gamers. That's the thesis that we're all building on. So when that moment comes, the gamers will come. I don't think it's going to matter. We all say this all the time. We won't be talking about blockchain and wallets, and it'll just accounts and playing this game. It'll all go back to that. But right now we are fighting the good fight, so these are the things we talk about, but it's not the reality. The reality is, who's going to provide a better gaming experience? Where is that going to end up? And wherever that better gaming experience ends up being, the best games are going to go there regardless. We won't be onboarding anyone anymore. It'll just be, that's what people use.
I mean,
but I want people to be interested in technology, though. I want them to be like, "Oh, that's so cool! Like, let's learn about it." But yeah, you're right.
I never learned about the internet. Like, it was cool. I was like, "Oh, cool," and then I'm just like, "But what can I do with it?" And I'm Googling or whatever. That's all I care about.
People have to be provided a reason to learn about something these days. They don't go out of their way to educate themselves. Like in your example, Erica, are they going to ignore the new Final Fantasy? There's a majority that might. There's a group that might. I shouldn't say majority. That's the wrong word. There's a group that probably will. But for the most part, I think most people are going to at least try it. And if the game is good and they're having fun, they're going to want to learn more. And I say this as somebody who in Dead Drop, I've got my visor, right? I got my founder, got my visor, and I've been running around in that game. And there's so many people who just bought the regular founder's pass because they're used to Web 2 and they don't understand everything. So they just got the founder's pass. They have no extra goodies. Like, oh man, how'd you get that visor? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's an NFT. And they're like, oh, well, how do I get one? And at that point, that's my opportunity to explain OpenSea, the wallet system, because they don't even directly have like their own wallet that they connect to. They have their own custodial wallet that you transfer the NFT into, and it ties to your account. And then to get it back, obviously, you have to detach it from your account, transfer it back to your wallet, and then post it on OpenSea, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that there are gamers out there, interesting. I probably could and probably should, because I haven't actually taken mine out of my custodial wallet at all. Like once I started, I was like, I'm sticking with this game, but that could be good content. So
yeah,
I'm a diamond hand.
Yeah.
I don't think I sell. The only time I sell is if I get lucky and somehow manage to like 30x an asset. But other than that, I buy stuff just to enjoy them in the game. That way, if it runs to zero, guess what? I'm not upset because I got to use it in my game. So I'm not an investor. I'm a gamer. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
But sometimes the profits just can't be ignored.
Yeah.
I hate when I write like brooms and they go to zero, or like, like that's, we just need to stop thinking about stuff this way. We buy things because they have utility and we use them and they have this great, like, come on.
I bought a car. I drove it off the lot. It lost 50% of its value right then and there. Right? If I wanted to turn around and resell it, I'm already in the negative.
People are fighting car dealerships for going to zero. Like we're so stuck in this box of way of thinking about video games, and that's what we need to iterate on and come up with new ways to think about gaming experiences that make it better for gamers. At the end of the day, that's all of our job.
That's true. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we wrap things up? We are past the top of the hour, so this is usually when we end. I just want to give you guys a chance to drop anything else that you might want to talk about.
All good.
Any games you're excited for in 2024?
Someone said, I haven't played Shrapnel yet. Someone said that Shrapnel feels like Battlefield, and that's all I can think about ever since I heard that, because I love Battlefield and the movement, the recoil and everything. So I'm stoked to try Shrapnel.
Shrapnel and Off the Grid, I think, are probably the only two still on my radar that I haven't actually played. Wildcard. I want to try Wildcard. I don't think it's going to be for me, but it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think Shrapnel's one everyone's mostly excited about. I finally did get my son to play a Web3 game. He's playing a mobile. It's Planet X. Play Planet, whatever. Planet is. I don't know. Yeah. And he kind of likes it. It's a little buggy though, like the actual experience that So like once we get past that, but yeah, my goal this year is to get him playing Web3 games and creating content about it. And I told him he could play unlimited games if he just creates one piece of content a day. I think that's an amazing deal.
Wow, that's awesome.
Like, just play all you want, but you have to make one piece of content a day. Like,
can I get that
learn
deal?
some skills. Yeah,
I know, right?
Deal.
We're moving
I will be
in.
everyone's mom, and that's the deal. That's just the house
I'll be
deal.
like, Erica and Grasslow, go brush your teeth. I thought
I'm
you were
brushing your teeth right now.
So what you're telling me is you're setting up a content farm.
Yeah, exactly. You guys
Content
all have to
creator
do one piece of content. Whoa, this
Her
is
new
a business
pyramid scheme.
model. Yes, we're gonna get a big house and let all the content creators, you can play all day. You just create the content. I love
That's
it.
amazing.
Make me money and I'll pay you to make me money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get my kids into, but you know, it's a little bit scary having them like download and you know everything on their computer. But one thing that's really, and I'll make this really quick. I know we're a little bit over, but one thing that's really interesting. My son, he's 10, and he came to me and he's like, "Mom," he plays Roblox. He's like, "Can I download this thing on our computer?" And I was like, "What is it? You know, what's going on?" And he was like, It was some sort of a program where you can basically mine Roblox. And he's like, "Mom, it's kind of like mining cryptocurrency." And I was like, "Say it again." Yeah.
No.
So he like, you know, I mean, they probably couldn't name like the top 10 tokens or anything like that or tell me a Web3 game, but like they do understand. And so it was actually, it was pretty cool. But I'm like, don't get your hopes up, honey. This isn't like a supercomputer. It's not a super miner, but sure, you know, we can do it and go through the motion and go through the process. So I thought that was actually pretty cool, though. So now we're very, 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 very slowly mining Roblox.
I've been trying to get my boyfriend into Web3 gaming, and it's not working. Getting him into any game has been a pain, but the second Lethal Company came out and he bought that, dude, he's staying up later than I am playing games. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you found something. I wish it was something I'd like to play a bit more.
Yeah.
I still jump in with him. We stayed up to like midnight last night playing. So, you know, at least it's something we can play together.
Yeah.
That's the big thing though, is like he's over there playing like the original Final Fantasy 12 on a PlayStation emulator, and I'm like, I can't join you for that. And I also can't stand PlayStation games anymore. Like not like PlayStation as a whole, but like the OG games. There's a lot that just didn't age well. If you try to play them in this day and age after you're used to all the modern systems and modern graphics, you go back and play it and it's just like, oof. But there's some nostalgia to some of them, like Legend of Dragoon, love it. Final Fantasy 7, love it. You put me on Time Splitters 2. I used to love Time Splitters 2, but the controls for FPS games have evolved drastically and it don't cut it no more.
Yeah. Sometimes it ruins it when you try to go back and play too. You're like, oh, I'll just let it be a good memory.
It's a classic and people love it. When I tell them I can't play it anymore, they're like, what? And I'm like, go back and try it again. I was like, you have nostalgia. You got those rose tinted lenses on. Go back and play it this day and age and tell me that it's still a fun game. For some people, it probably is though. Let's be honest. They're sadistic or something. I don't know.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys for joining. Wait, did you have something, Grezzo?
No, I said it's totally.
Somebody said something, I thought. Okay, whatever. That's going to be it for us today, sauce enthusiasts. Thank you again for joining us this week. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of your week to join us. Erica, it was fantastic having you on for the first time. Mikkel, I look forward to seeing you again. And Graslow, I mean, you're here. You've been here. You're one of the rocks that hold this whole thing up. So I'll see you, if not next week, one of the following weeks. So thank you again for joining us. Appreciate your face. And remember, the sauce never stops flowing. Follow us on social medias. And we have our own website, blacksauce.com. I don't have my little flashy logo to do down there. We are on a new system today. So I apologize, guys, but you know where to find us. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on LinkedIn. We're on everywhere. So go just Google the Block Sauce. We should have SEO by now, I hope. Don't quote me on that. But otherwise, you can find us on Twitter, and all of the links are over there. So thank you again for joining. Appreciate your face. And remember, keep gaming in the exciting realm of Web3. Have a good one.